Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Anna. I'm a clinical psychology doctoral candidate. On this channel we talk about real-life applications to psychology, and today we're talking about some psychological tips for interviews. If this video is helpful to you, please consider liking and hitting subscribe and hit the bell notification button if you would like to be notified twice a week when I make new videos. I guess I'll just give you a little bit of background on my relationship to interviews. When I went into clinical psychology, I did not realize how many interviews would be involved, because every year you have to interview for a new clinical rotation. The first 3 years they're called practicum placements, and the last year it's called internship. And so every year we're talking a new round of applications, probably about 5 interviews on average for practicum placements, and for internship the magic number is 8. Hopefully it'll be more than that, because I'm actually in the process of applying for internship right now. And so I don't want to make it seem like I'm the be-all end-all on interviews. I am definitely not the best interviewer out there, but I do think I've gotten pretty good at figuring out what exactly you need to do to be successful on interviews. So let's talk first before the interview, what you should do to prepare for it, and then we'll talk about during the interview and after. Before the interview, I really recommend you prepare some flashcards or an outline of all your answers to specific questions. I pretty much know inside and out any question under the sun that they might ask me, but it's up to you to research for your specific industry or the particular job that you're applying for. What are the questions that they're going to be asking? What are the questions that are very likely? What are the ones that are maybe on the off chance? Either way, prepare for them all as much as you can. Really have some bullet points for every single question. Prepare to over answer than to under answer. You can always cut out if you have too much to say, but in case you don't have enough to say in the moment when you're pretty nervous, it's kind of hard to come up with something. So prepare as much as possible, first of all on your own, and then after you've done that, start to role play with someone, preferably via the forum that the interview will take place. So if you're interviewing in person, maybe meet up with someone in person to do it. If it's happening over Zoom, meet up with them over Zoom. If it's happening over the phone, do a phone interview and so forth, and record the mock interview so that you can watch yourself doing it, so that you can give yourself feedback, and also ask the other person to give you feedback, and be as harsh as possible. Be completely cold, blank stare during the interview, being the most difficult interviewer possible, which will probably not happen on the actual interview, but it's good to be prepared for the worst case scenario. Ask them to throw you curveballs, ask them to switch up the order of the questions, ask them to be very hard to read in the moment, and ask for feedback afterwards, and of course revise the recording yourself as well. But I find it really helpful to also kind of record yourself doing a question and answer just on photo booth or something. Have the different questions on flashcards, mix them up so that you're surprised about the order, and just film yourself reacting and see where you slip up, what ways you answer really well, really eloquently, and keep doing that until it really comes naturally, so that it's not like memorizing something or having a script, so that it really comes naturally and you really know what are the main bullet points that I want to focus on for each question. If possible, if you know who the interviewer is going to be, or you have like a contact page of the people at the organization, try to do a little bit of research and see if you have any similarities with them, if they have any particular interests, what they look like, so that you get a sense of, you know, when you're in front of the person, that you already kind of are familiar with them. If you have certain similarities with them that you've seen in their bio or something, really latch on to those. If there are certain buzzwords that they use on their online profile, latch on to those. Use similar language to them so that you can show that you're part of their tribe, so to speak. And just emphasize similarities in general. Like, this is gonna sound silly, but I was thinking this year, I'm not sure whether or not to straighten my hair for these interviews. My hair is naturally pretty wavy, almost curly. I know that people who tend to be prejudiced against people of different colors and ethnicities tend to think that straight hair is the only professional hair. And so I was thinking maybe this year I will look at people's profiles and see, first of all, do they have straight hair? Do they have curly hair? What kind of country are they from? Are they from a culture where they might think that straight hair is more professional? Because if so, that may be in my best interest to do, versus if they're, you know, from Turkey and they have a beautiful mane of hair, then I'm probably not going to straighten it, because they're probably going to see that as an unspoken similarity that they have with me. So try to really emphasize any similarities that you have with the interviewer. A really important piece before the interview is visualizing your interview success. Close your eyes and, using all of the 5 senses, try to visualize you succeeding at this as vividly as possible. Visualize how you look, how you sound, your posture, your eloquent vocabulary, your warmth, your confidence, your easy manner. The list goes on. If you have aphantasia or generally struggle with visualization, just write it out as vividly as possible. Some people refer to this as scripting your manifestation, and you won't see your success per se as in visualizing it, but you will still be able to imagine it and know exactly what you're hoping to get out of this. For me, I found the scripting is incredibly important because I am a very, very verbal person. If I see something in writing, I'm really going to connect with it more than if I just imagine it or just see it visually. And so figure out what works best for you. If you're more of a verbal person, then really script it out. If you're more of a visual person, then visualize it as much as possible, or just do a mix of both. Maybe you write out a script, record yourself saying it, and then it's kind of like a guided meditation as you visualize it. I was going to make a video on this, but you guys didn't vote for it too much, so I'm not going to make a video. This is all I'm going to say about visualization. It is so important, and it is scientifically shown to be important. Pro athletes visualize a move before they perform it usually. That's also the mechanism behind which method acting works, because when you're visualizing an action, the same parts of your brain activate as when you're actually performing the action. So in a way, you're strengthening those mind muscles, cementing the neural pathways to make the thing you visualized your new reality. So visualization, extremely important. Highly recommend you visualize yourself going into these interviews and smashing them. Something else I recommend before an interview is having a really empowering ritual or imagery around you the night before. So for me, this looks like red and orange candles, a bath with dragon's blood salts, empowering music, only surrounding myself with people and situations that will make me feel good about myself. And then of course, it's really important after this ritual, after this energizing ritual, to get a really good night's sleep. Take melatonin or something if you struggle to fall asleep. Have your own sleep ritual as well to really help you get in the mood of rest. And then right before the interview, dressing is obviously very important. Make sure that you look professional and sharp. Here's a little secret. I learned this from the charisma myth, which I made a video about last week. If you dress in blue, that inspires the most trust in people, and the darker the blue is, the more trust you inspire. Therefore, I'm going to be wearing this at the interview. I also think you should tailor your decisions about your appearance based on your personal needs though. For instance, if you are already a very attractive person, you look like a model, excessive makeup might give people the wrong impression. Like, are you here to be a makeup salesperson or are you interviewing for a marketing job? So be mindful that some people are gonna have some biases about different appearances. And I'm not saying we need to always conform with that. I'm not saying it's right, but if it serves you, if you really want this job, it might be helpful to kind of blend into what they need. On the other hand, if you're a little more conventionally humble looking, enhancing your attractiveness will help your chances, because there is the halo effect, which means that people who are more attractive get seen as more competent, more intelligent. They just generally get seen as better at everything because they're attractive. If you look young, glasses can make you look more mature. If you're trying to look younger, there are tricks you can do with your makeup to make you look younger, like thicker brows, blush on your cheekbones, concealer, and so forth. So for me, this is the makeup I'm planning on wearing to interviews. It's a little bit more muted than I usually wear because I thought like a crisp black liquid liner would be a little bit too glamorous. And so as you can see, it's just like a soft brown eyeshadow, just a little bit something to give me some contrast, some texture, and to make me look a little bit older. And again, right before the interview, maybe an hour before, run through the questions that you struggle with just once and then put them away. You want to be acting on the spot intuitively rather than sticking to a script. So you want to practice as much as you can, but then right before, put them out of your mind and just answer instinctively. And you can pump yourself up with a triumphant song. Personally, I like to use The Final Countdown. It's really embarrassing. Dance along to it if it feels natural, and then calm yourself with some breathing exercises or some other grounding exercises. Then, during the interview, the most important thing is for the interviewer to like you. They already know you're qualified if you are there, but they need to know that in addition to being competent at what you do, you're someone they would like to spend the next however many years seeing for 40 hours a week. So focus on charisma. I just put out a video on this if you're interested in improving your charisma, so check it out. If you're able to smile, be lighthearted, crack a little innocent joke every now and then, make sure that you're showing your personality shine through. Now, usually the first question, at least in my industry, is tell me about yourself. I fucking hate that question. Anyway, so this is where you basically mix personal and professional. But the thing is, I would emphasize the personal a little bit more. Don't just be running through your CV because they have your CV. If need be, if you answer about your values and your interests and your heritage and who you are as a person, and they haven't read your CV, they're gonna ask a follow-up question, tell me about your training experiences or tell me about your previous jobs or so forth. So really focus on making an impression, trying to market yourself, wondering what's unique about you, what's the golden thread that defines you. Is it your culture, a specific value, a particular trait? Make that a recurrent theme in your responses so they can easily remember you for something. You don't want to just be the person that ran through their CV. You want to be someone that triggers something, some curiosity in them, something that they find similar or find fascinating about you. When speaking about your past experiences, don't just narrate dry facts, but really tell a story. Explain what was unique or challenging about each position, what you learned, how one opportunity led to another. Your passion about the work should be palpable. I recently heard somebody at my training site going through all of his experiences, and it was so fluid and so interesting. It wasn't just I did this, then I did that, then I did this. It was really they all linked together, and he made it very clear what he learned from each experience. You also want to make extremely clear the fit between yourself and the site. Have a few bullet points of your skills, talents, prior experiences, and future goals, and how those complement the particular site or organization's opportunities or requirements. And the more specific you can be here, the better. Be humble. Even if they ask you, what is your greatest accomplishment? What would you like to shout from the rooftop? Your answer should reflect humility. Don't be afraid to showcase that you made mistakes, so long as, first of all, they're minor mistakes. They're not something that would indicate you have a compromised ethics or there's something really wrong about you. And secondly, the mistakes that you mentioned should be followed up with what you learned from them or how you rectified them. Don't mask your weaknesses as strengths. That comes off as inauthentic. Everyone can sniff through that. Think of your weaknesses more like past weaknesses instead, that you partially or completely overcame so that you can speak to how you did so, because that's really what they want to know. They want to know, when you have a weakness, what steps do you take to resolve it? They don't actually want to hear that you're type A or difficult to get along with or whatever it might be. Also, be positive. Don't throw other people under the bus. Don't speak disparagingly of your past experiences. Express gratitude and praise as much as possible. Use positive rather than negative language. Like, for instance, if you're going to say, my last job wasn't a great fit, I think it would be more helpful to reframe that as, I felt my skills would be a better fit for a job like this one. This way they know that if at one point you become unhappy with them, you're not going to throw them under the bus. You're just going to respectfully seek out what's a better fit for you. It's also really important to be as specific as possible. Give examples that will captivate the interviewer's attention, that will make specific things that you're saying very clear. Like if you're going to say, I like to be a team player, how? Like, that doesn't mean anything. Anyone could say that. Give an example of a time when you were a team player that showcases you're actually telling the truth. Try to tell a story for pretty much every question if you can. In terms of pacing, take your time if you talk too fast, or talk faster if you tend to talk very slowly, but no choppy pauses, only elegant pauses. No filler words like and like and you know. This will differentiate you from other interviewees because almost everyone uses filler words. You know, if you use one, it's not the end of the world. If anything, it makes you look a little bit more human in a sense. But if you can be as eloquent as possible, obviously that is really going to differentiate you. Also, make sure that you have enough questions to fill up all of the possible time that is left over after they've asked you questions. Remember, this is about you assessing if this is a good fit as much as it is for them. And so have a really long list of questions to go through, because there's also a good chance they're probably going to answer some of them in the actual interview or before the interview. So you want to have some really intricate ones that are thoughtful and show that you already did your research and you're thinking deeper than just the superficial stuff. In terms of diversity, obviously I don't know what industry you work in, in, but I know this is really important in psychology. Usually when they ask you about diversity, they want to know that you're aware we all have biases. Multicultural competence is not a one and done thing. It's something that is an active, continuous process, and that you yourself have your own biases, and that you acknowledge that, and that you are taking actions to identify and rectify them. So again, try to tell a story of a time when you had a bias. Nothing crazy, like don't say I'm a transphobe. Don't say that. Something minor, something where it was a subtle bias that you realized you had and how you went about fixing it. If they ask you a question that's meant to trip you up, answer candidly. Like you can say, wow, that's a great question, or what a unique question, I've never heard of that before. Don't be afraid to take your time thinking about it, and don't think too much about the content, but rather being able to think on your feet, because that's what they really want to know. So if they ask you something random like, what's your biggest pet peeve? Again, don't think too much about the content, but also don't pour out your deepest, darkest secret. Don't overshare. Make it something that maybe you can turn into a little bit of a lighthearted moment. Like, my biggest pet peeve, I don't like when people eat with their mouth open. It's not that big of a deal. It's probably not going to impact your relationship with them, but it shows that you can be spontaneous and have a little fun with it. And if this is a Zoom or a virtual interview, just a couple specific tips for that. Grounding objects are really important, and it's so wonderful that with Zoom interviews you can actually do this. So you can have like a crystal on you, you could have a crystal bracelet like these. My mom just recently gave me these. I'm thinking about using them because this one is labradorite, which is the stone of magic, awakening, enchanting, and protecting. Oh no, this one fell off, but I think it was alabaster, I think that one. And it might be like for confidence, if I remember correctly. And then this one's blue sky jasper, stone of empowerment. So all three of these, not only do they look great together, they are very good for an interview setting. So if it helps ground you, you can just have these under the camera, just feeling each one, really pacing yourself, grounding yourself in the moment, being mindful of the present moment. Also, you could have a candle if you have really bad circulation like me and your hands get cold. Just cupping a candle in your hand can be helpful. Or it could be anything else. I recommend having a glass of water next to you as opposed to a water bottle, because I don't know if you're aware of this, but when we drink from a water bottle, we look like a baby having a pacifier or something. It looks really infantile. Let me show you. You see, that looks stupid. Also, if it is a remote interview, you can absolutely have a post-it or document open on the side of the camera, but only for use in emergencies, and ideally should only have like 1 or 2 code words for each bullet point that should instantly trigger your memory for what you want to say in response to a question. Make sure you're only gazing at it for the briefest of moments, or they will notice. The one that I usually do for post-its is why here, like why do you want to be at this site, and tell me about yourself, because those are longer, usually maybe like 3-minute long responses, which for me, someone who's a pretty shy person, is a lot of time to be talking. But again, only code words. You should only glance at it and know immediately what you want to say. And to be honest, you know, if you have that for emergencies, you probably won't need it. I've never needed to use it before. And of course, for Zoom interviews, it's really important you have good lighting and angles, clean, tidy surrounding, no superfluous noises, nothing like that. People say make sure your pets are like not around. I don't know, like if you have a dog that's very loud and barks a lot, that could definitely be upsetting. But if it's like just an animal in the background, that could be something cute and a bonding experience in the interview. And so that was during the interview. And after the interview, write down some immediate impressions or questions that you remember they asked you for future reference, or if you have multiple job offers and you're trying to pick one. Make a list of the things you did well, make a list of the things you could have done better on, what were the challenges, so that again, for the next interview, you can overcome those. Have a very warm thank you email with a specific reference to something you noticed or an additional question or something of the sort. And celebrate and relax. Reward yourself with something like a special meal, a cup of tea, a day of no responsibilities, hanging out with your friends, whatever is rewarding for you, so that you start to associate interviews with positive outcomes. But I hope this was helpful. If it was, interacting with this video would be very helpful and appreciated, and I'll see you in a couple days.